So I want you to picture this. You're going through one of the hardest physical tests of your life, whether it be your coach in PE class or whether you're trying to PR on the bench or squat or whatever exercise it is. In order to do so, what goes on in your head in order to muster that strength? You're probably answering this question by saying, oh, I think about my resentment towards someone, or I think about my ex who broke my heart. In this interview, I wanted to find the answer to that very question. Coming from someone who's been through a lot of these physical tests, are negative emotions really the best way to go about getting the strength and the endurance to go on these super long physical tests? Today I talk with Evan Tsai, a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, a current UCI student, and an extraordinarily strong person, now benching close to 300 pounds. So in today's interview, you'll listen to what he thinks about during his long and grueling black belt tests, which are unlike any other that you've probably heard from your friends. His experience in UCI and what he intends to do with his major, and where he finds most inspiration from in order to achieve such great feats. Welcome back to the Magnus Effect, the podcast where we talk to ambitious college students and understand how they're balancing their ambitions with the day-to-day college life. I'd like to thank everyone, as this is our 21st episode, which officially makes us in the top 1% of all podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, I really enjoyed how this episode turned out, and I hope you have a great time listening to it as well. With that being said, please welcome Evan Tsai. How long have you been in Taekwondo now?
15 years.
15 years. And what initially sparked that interest, and how did you start initially training?
As a young kid, I was into like martial arts after watching all like the Bruce Lee movies. So I kind of got interested and just told my parents like, hey, is there a Taekwondo studio around us? And they found a teacher that I still go to once in a while right now. And I've been with him ever since.
Right. So this initially sparked like from what? You said a movie? And then
yeah,
you just kind
of after I saw like all the crazy moves they were kicking, I was like, I want to be able to kick like that.
So initially, like, did you ever reach a point where that glamour kind of faded off? Or do you think it's always...
The only time it really like faded off is like, I would say is when I had to teach the little kids, because like they do not like they would not listen to me. So every time I went there, it was like, oh, it's this again for that. But the other stuff, I'm okay to do. And unless if it's forms where you have to memorize all the moves, like that's not part of like actual fighting. I didn't like that stuff either.
It's funny that you say that because, you know, a lot of people on my podcast, they actually express like their love for teaching when it comes to like mastering their art or their passion it is. But does teaching for you like improve your skills at all or not really in terms of Taekwondo?
Not really in terms of Taekwondo, because I mean, you know me, since in like middle school, I get like impatient easily. So if like someone's not getting it after a few tries, I kind of just like give up or move on.
So something I really enjoy about your journey in Taekwondo, I mean, a lot of different dojos have like different requirements for how to ascend like different belts. And I know from the stories that you've told me that your belts are extremely prestigious compared to what other dojos might be requiring you to do. So I just want to have you paint that for the audience. Like, what was it that you had to do for like each of these tests, and which has been the hardest for you?
So usually for each test, you would have to be able to like do all the physical stuff the teacher tells you to do. Then you would have to be able to recite from memory everything they taught you, like all the punching, hand moves, kicking techniques. Then at the end, you break a board. And so white belt is obviously the easiest one because usually it's just like a hammer fist. Like anybody could do that right now. And then as you go higher in belts, you have to break more boards for the test. And if you don't break them, sometimes like he kind of postpones your like promotion and be like, all right, come back next time and break it. When you can break them and you're ready, then I'll give you the belt. But some of them, like once you get to black belt or like red belt level, because it's getting more advanced, he usually chooses like a weekend because those ones tend to take longer because since you're getting close to like that black belt level and there's a lot more stuff to recite and memorization involved, those tests can take like a couple hours, if not like it's pretty much like an all day thing.
Right. Tell me a little bit about like one of your experiences when it came to like what you had to recite and like all the different trainings that you had to.
So like for the first degree black belt test I took like 7 hours, and it started at 8 in the morning and ended at like 3 in the afternoon. And the first 2.5 hours is basically cardio, physical stuff, and memorization on all the kicks and rolling, falling techniques you learned up until that point when you're testing for your black belt. Then after that, he usually, after you're already kind of tired, he makes you do a crazy amount of push-ups, sit-ups,
What
and
would be
then
like a specific number that you had to do at
well,
that
it
time?
depends on what he's feeling. So if he's like in a really bad mood, he could say something like, all right, I want you to do 300 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, and then we're gonna run around the studio 150 times. If he's like, and he was sometimes like I feel like he would just throw out those numbers, and then he would say like, all right, well, get to work, and it doesn't have to all be in one set, but as long as you get those 300 sit-ups and push-ups in, then you're good.
So, did that ever bother you? I don't know. I feel like if I'm training to be in like to get really good at martial art, and then for my coach to just say one day, you're gonna have to do more for this test than you initially had to, I feel like that would make me feel like, dang, I can't believe I have to do all this just to prove myself.
He
Like,
does warn you, but to be honest, I feel like it comes like because there's a training program you take before every black belt level because there's degrees in black belt because it doesn't just end at first degree black belt. So usually like 3 or 4 months before your actual black belt test, he would tell you like you need to sign up for this certain class program that's like 2 months long that prepares you for the black belt test. And those like classes that are like an hour and a half long, they are like nothing related to the actual test because it's only like it's related because you learn all the forms and techniques and stuff, but the fitness and cardio wise, that's what always gets people because in the studio, because you don't have much time as like the weekend where it's like 7 hours long, he would just be like, all right, run 50 laps and do this amount of push-ups and this, and he would be like, all right, yeah, because on your test, you're going to have to do 200. So if you can't do 50, then you got to start training more.
what you're mentioning right now is honestly some things like myself who casually work out are like goals that I just want to reach on my own, like doing 50 push-ups at a time or like being able to run however much the distance 50 laps is for you. But have you ever had a time where, you're making it sound easy, but have you ever failed one of these tests before? I mean, this seems like a super physically demanding like test. Like how do you even deal with uh that point where you just want to quit and where you just start feeling the most physical pain?
I say when you start struggling, you just got to keep thinking that like I gotta get through this today because I do not want to go through this again. Especially if you're like 4 out of the 7 hours in, you gotta have that mindset and be locked in and be like, I do not want to do this again.
And do you see that a lot with like some of the students that you teach? Like, do you tell them that?
Uh, Sometimes I would, or sometimes if the master wants me to like I really teach them, he'll make me spar them and he'll say like go a little bit harder than like you usually do because I want them to get a feel for what being serious in a fight is because if they're just goofing off in like sparring, for example, they get to a real life like self-defense situation when someone try to rob them and they start laughing, they're gonna get robbed right away.
Right. So that's where you kind of step in and kind of like humble them almost.
Yeah, so like the master will be like, Yeah, like go be like a little more serious and kick harder so they're more aware, because usually like after the first couple kicks, when you kick them hard, they will be like, oh, that was kind of hard. Maybe I gotta start dodging these now, so I gotta be aware of like where he's gonna kick next. But then if you're too easy on them and you're kind of just like talking to them and you're just like kind of going through the motion, then it's not as serious for them, and it's not gonna be good for them when they're in the training progression.
What do you think the hardest test is, like in relativity to like skill level, like the jump that requires that is required of you physically?
I say personally, the jump from the second degree black belt test to the third degree, or every degree of black belt you go up, is like exponentially harder than the last one, because when you get to the black belt test, he makes you punch the boards like bare knuckle, and you can only use one hand at the end. And that's, and mind this is like after 6 hours of running around and you're already all sweaty. You're probably, your arms and legs are kind of like already like feeling sore, but you're not like not super sore yet, like the next couple of days. But when you get to the punching, that's where everyone like kind of hits a wall, because you have to really put that mental like mindset in you to make sure like you can finish it through, because if you don't punch those last boards, then you're not going to pass, and you're just like right there at the finish line. So it would suck if you have to do like the whole 7 hours again just because you couldn't finish that last part.
When you're going through like this entire training, I mean, 6 hours is a humongous, like a very long endurance game. And you touched upon it earlier where you tell yourself like, hey, I don't want to do this again. Is there, in moments like that, are you, what's going through your head? Are you just completely thoughtless? I always wondered how marathon runners are able to run for so long, or how people are able to endure so much pain for so
I
long.
say
But
what helps motivate me is in the beginning, when you're like, I guess, bored when you're doing the test, when you're doing all the physical, you just gotta think of something else that's like kind of happy, that to get your mind like, just think of yourself as like hanging out with friends. Like that's what I would do, and then pretend you're just going to another Taekwondo class, but it's just a little bit longer, even though it's maybe like 7 times longer, and you just don't pay attention to the time at all, and then the test will feel like it went by quickly. And then when you're doing the physical stuff and you're like struggling, I say you just gotta make yourself angry, like think of something that like pretty much pisses you off or that gets you going, and then use that as fuel for yourself.
so now that you've reached the level that you are at now, do you feel like Bruce Lee? Do you think you've reached the goal that you wanted to?
Definitely not, but
Definitely
I
not.
can say I'm at least one step closer.
Do you recommend this form of self-defense to other people? Why or why not? Do you think that they should start off with something else?
Well, I say if you're the type of person that likes to be like all rounded when it comes to fighting, Taekwondo is like one of the best ones for like endurance and fighting techniques, because it focuses on like the punches, kicking, dodges, and like memorization, like pretty much everything you would need to know in a fight. The only thing that I wish it touched on more is like wrestling stuff. So if people like, especially bigger guys and so, they feel like their wrestling game is kind of like low, then they could join like jujitsu also along with taekwondo, and that's a pretty good pair to train with.
The discipline that you get from this type of like passion, like have you been able to channel that somewhere else? I mean, showing up and doing the same thing for 15 years is obviously a very, it should just shows that your character of how like resilient you are. So has this kind of transferred into something else in your life or your other passions?
It's transferred to working out and lifting weights.
How did you get
Uh,
into that?
well, I knew I was gonna be like a small guy, and I didn't want to be that kid where everyone's like, "Oh, that dude looks like a shrimp. Let me let's try to take advantage or beat him up. So I didn't want to be that guy at school. So I started lifting weights, and
And this was supposed to be complementary to Taekwondo, or
it
this
helps
was
with
supposed to.
Taekwondo too because like people told me that I was already pretty strong. So they told me if I got into like weightlifting, like my kicks, punches, agility would be better. So I gave it a try and then I got into it. Like at first, I was kind of impatient. I was about to give up, and I was just like, you know what? That's what I was like with Taekwondo, but I'm already here. And I got to where I am, and I'm happy. So I'm gonna just hold on to this weightlifting for a little longer, and maybe it'll be a bigger part in the future. And I ended up liking it a lot more.
So how long have you been doing this now?
I've been lifting weights since like March of 2020
March of 2020.
or 2020, yeah, like 4 years now, a little over 4 years.
And how have you kind of been like measuring your progress? Was it always, do you go into lifts like blindly, or do you always have something in mind? What is your routine?
Um, I just give myself a realistic number I can do, and then based on what if I can do, I just work off that.
So what are some like the milestones you might have like crossed over the years?
So currently, right now, like for bench press, I can bench around 300 right now,
Oh my gosh. And how much do you weigh?
like 154.
That
Yeah,
is impressive.
yeah. Deadlift, I can deadlift at least 4 plates. I don't know how many exactly because it depends on the day. If I have a lot of energy, then it'll be better than like others. Squats, I don't really go for 1 rep maxes because I just don't want to hurt my back. So I would say on a good day, I could rep out 3 plates on squat for like 6 to 8 reps for like 3 or 4 sets.
So how was this progression like? How long did it take? Or you said you started only, what is now, 4 years ago? How long did it take you to get to this point in terms of like all the different things before that? Like was your goal before like, okay, so let me first start off with 1 plate, then 2 plates and 3 plates and
So yeah, like obviously my first goal was like 1 plate and for bench, like that was my goal. And I thought like that was a lot after I did it. And then when I started watching YouTubers of these buff guys benching like 600 pounds, I'm just like, damn, I need to get to that level or do more weight because like this is not impressive. So eventually, like when I hit 1 plate, I was happy, and then I saw the videos on YouTube. I'm like, oh wow, I'm not impressed by my PR anymore. So I gotta keep working. Then eventually, I started warming up with 1 plate, and then working towards 2 plates. And then when I hit 2 plates on bench,
how long did it take you to get from 1 plate to 2 plates?
I would say maybe like a year and a half.
A year and a half. Wow.
Yeah.
And then from there,
From there, after I hit like 2 plates, I started hitting a plateau. So I was about to try something different and like quit at that point. But then I just kept working at it and kept consistent, like what I did with Taekwondo. And then I broke my plateau, which was like, because I was stuck at 235 on bench for 6 months. And then which was, I think it was last year. Last year, I was stuck at 235, but then when I was working out with one of my friends, and I told him, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try 235 again. Today might be the day I get it. I ended up repping it 3 times pretty easily. So after that, I knew I could do more. So ever since that, I kept going, and then I got stuck at 280 again. Then it took 6 months to break that plateau, and then until now, where I'm like around 300.
and that's an amazing feat. So do you approach lifting as coming up with a goal first? Like, hey, I want to beat my record. I want to reach this certain number. How do you approach like goal setting in terms of weightlifting to be able to like reach your level?
Well, you just gotta look at like what's your previous lifts and like keep note of them. by like taking videos or just remembering. And then every day you go in, you push yourself with like high intensity weight training, going for like less reps and working on explosiveness. And then eventually you'll see those numbers like climb up slowly. And then when you're doing something right, you'll just notice that like every day you're setting like a new personal best, and it really like makes you feel good. So then like motivates you to go back to the gym again.
Right. So are those intricate like do were you always like journaling yourself? Like do you have like your own notebook that you show up to the gym with and like go,
Oh
"Hey,
no, no,
this
no.
is like my
I mean,
number. I need to beat this."
I just take videos of my like lifts, or tell my friends that spawn me to take a video, and then like even if it's a failing one, I'll still take a video sometimes so I can see like how close I was and see what I need to work on. And because sometimes you actually do have it, but maybe that day you didn't get enough sleep or you didn't eat enough or something, whatever happened, then you get it. And then maybe like, let's say another day, maybe you're just really angry, and maybe, I don't know, for others, they would break up with their girlfriend and they're like, damn, I need to hit the gym today. And they just start unleashing everything and locking in, and they just start like repping their maxes like pretty easily.
Hmm. So you touched on it perfectly. That's the next thing I was gonna ask you. I was like, you from what it sounds like, it seems like you're not really driven by like negativity at all in terms of your lift. Are you like completely self-sufficient by like the um the satisfaction you get from yourself being able to press forward, or like the satisfaction of improving yourself?
Yeah,
That's
that's
all it takes for you.
for me. That's what it takes. I just know that I just want to be strong for my own self, and like, okay, like people like, and if you have friends that you go with, that helps a lot too, because sometimes they kind of bring your energy level up. Like maybe that day you don't think you have it in you, but then because between sets, like your friend may be like getting your mind off of it and say like, oh, like, check out this cool thing I just got today, and then you start like getting more energetic, and then all of a sudden you just have that sudden burst of energy, and then you just lift it.
Would you call that being like competitive? Would you say that you're a
uh
competitive person to match those people?
I wouldn't say I'm competitive, but if someone did like say challenge me and be like, hey, let's see who can bench 2 plates for more, then I'd be down. I would definitely go for it, but no one has really done that with me yet, because the friends I usually work out with, like they're like, I'm not trying to call them weak or anything, but like their maxes is like not even like what I work out with. So it's kind of hard to put a challenge like that, because like you're gonna win, and it's kind of like rubbing it in, and I don't want to be like showing off towards them. Like for example, like if I had a friend that I know can only bench 185 pounds, I wouldn't say like, hey, let's do a challenge on how many times we can bench 185, because I already know I'm good. Like you would win, or it's like you as a black belt challenging a white belt to a fight, and then you just do like one kick, and you just like completely win them, and there's no point in that.
Right. So, do you have like a role model in mind? Like, I feel like the people that are working out with you, they're looking up to you. They're like, oh my gosh, Evan can lift so much for his weight and his height. And, I'm more heavy, I'm less heavy, but I want to be like him. I know I can achieve it because of him. Do you have those role models as well? Like, do you look up to someone? Are you trying to become the level of strength of someone else currently?
I would say one of the people that definitely has played an important role in my all my physical fitness stuff is my dad, because he's the one that basically pushes me. And then the other like quarter would be from like the influencers I watch on YouTube, like Larry Wheels or those strongman people, and I just see them lifting like my maxes like it's nothing, and I'm like, oh man, I must be doing something wrong, like besides not being their size. But like if I can get somewhat close to that at my size, like how much more impressive would that be?
So with like the level you're at right now, have you ever considered going like a professional route in weightlifting?
Actually, people were telling me that like this fall, with when our third year starts, that I should join the powerlifting club because they think I would do really good on like the placements. And I'm thinking about going. And then I even have a friend that said he would help me go on like a diet plan and all this stuff. So I kind of have it sorted out, but I'm still thinking because I'm already in the Taekwondo club and I don't know if this powerlifting club, like what the times are and if it's going to interfere with my Taekwondo club.
So I'm gonna ask this next question as a way to like keep poking back at like trying to understand like your psyche when it comes to achieving these great things. But let's say you do pursue the powerlifting club, right? You go in, you see all these like 6'4" guys just like lifting more than you. At what point do you think that you would be discouraged from joining the club? At what point do you think you would quit, or at what factors of the club would make you feel like, you know what, I want to stay here and I should stay here because every time I stuck with something, I reach greatness?
I would say the only thing that would stop me is like if the club is full of like people that I don't like and they just seem to be cocky all the time, that would discourage me from going because I don't want to surround myself with people that are like cocky and then they're always going like, oh yeah, let's see who could or if you like, for example, if I like just hit like 500 on deadlift, for example, and then one of your club mates in the powerlifting goes like, oh, that's weak, you should try 500 now or something like that, and they just keep rubbing it in that they could bench or like deadlift 500, then like I would not want to be around that person because would be in myself and be like, well, you're a bigger person, you've probably been doing it longer, so you should be able to do more
Right.
body weight wise.
But what do you think of like how I would describe like hard people, like David Goggins, who are constantly yelling at you to push you further? Do you consider that as toxicity, or do you consider it as that pushing you?
I would consider it as pushing me, but I feel like there will be times where you feel like giving up, but I just know that's part of the process.
So is it just that simple? Is it when you reach a plateau, you just say, F it, like I've already reached this far, I just got to keep going? Is it that simple?
Yeah. I feel like people these days kind of overthink it because they'll be like, oh, I gotta take this specific pre-workout and protein powder to hit this today. And like people don't realize that it's just all like a mental game when you're doing anything physical related, like for your own personal goal. Like if you believe you can hit 3 plates on bench one day and you think you're ready, don't even think, just do it, and don't like do anything different that would make you think that you would be able to lift it.
Right.
Like just be your own self and don't change change your routine.
I love that message. And I'm sure that there's a lot more things that, or just knowing you, I know you've definitely applied that to all aspects of your life. I mean, whatever it is that you pursue yourself, it seems like you're able to consistently keep up with it and you're able to become pretty good at it. Maybe not world class, but examples I'm thinking about right now are like, Brawl Stars, Pokemon Go. Like these are all games that you have been like extremely great at. But when it comes to those kinds of hobbies, I wanted to ask you like, and you touched upon it a little earlier when you said like, don't overthink it. But do you ever feel like some things that you do are like a waste of time, or do you not really think about that and you just care for the enjoyment that comes out of it?
I feel like for me, it's the enjoyment that comes out of it. But like if it's something like a game, because like I know like everyone has a time in their life where they'll be playing some kind of game and then after a few years they'll grow out of it. So like for me, like I have a few games like on the mobile that I grew out of, like Angry Birds, for example. I was a sucker for those games. Like I would basically download every single version because they had like a Star Wars space original version and then some other whatever versions, and I would like download all those games and try to beat every single level, and before you know it, like it just got boring eventually because I'm just like, man, all I do is just drag my finger, let go, and tap, and that's it.
Right.
But the thing I like about like the games I play right now, like Pokemon Go, like there's no cap in like where you can stop because you can always go higher because that's what I like about games that have seasons or like certain rankings because like it basically hooks you into playing more like it's almost like gambling like you can never have too much money
Right.
so you're always so if you like say like you're up 200 grand and you believe you can go up to 1 million and no one's gonna stop you.
Right. And it's just going through the grind and like pushing to
Yeah,
reach that level, right?
yeah. Unless you just run out of money or like I don't know. In this case, on like your game, if they like ban the game or you just I don't know.
So you're currently studying at UCI. Tell me a little bit about how university is like. Like, what are you majoring in, and what drew you to this major?
So I'm an international studies major right now. I just like that major because when I heard like the word international, I was like, oh, like maybe you gotta learn about like the economies and conflicts of around the world, and I like to know about what's going on in the world.
Right.
So I figured that was the best choice for me, and I just joined it.
Is this
Or
like politics or
it's a little bit of politics, but it's mostly like the conflicts, like especially like with what's going on with like the encampments right now. Like we learn about that, about like why that's happening and what's happening with their government and why they're doing this and supporting it.
recently I saw on the news that the police came onto your campus, right? And they were trying to clear out the encampments, from my
Yeah.
understanding. What's up with that?
I mean, it
I'm
was only
curious.
like a week thing, but the I would say like 2 weeks ago is when it got really bad, but I wasn't even on campus that day. So I was glad that I didn't have to get into like the crossfires of that. But I just heard a bunch of helicopters like going around school and I was wondering like what's going on and all that stuff. And then when I saw the news now and it said like UCI and Cameron, I was like, wait, I'm literally here right now.
Right. So a little bit about like the campus culture of like UCI. Are you guys are protests pretty often there, like the encampment type stuff, or not
No,
really?
not really.
Really? How would you describe UCI's like social scene?
I say like sometimes it can be boring, sometimes it can be fun, but at the end of the day, I feel like it depends on the kind of people you're surrounded. Like if you're around people that just like the game all day and stuff like that, and that's all the friends that you have, then chances are you're probably not gonna enjoy it like on the weekends there. But if you're like with more outgoing people that go out of Irvine and drive out of Irvine, then it'll be more fun.
Hmm. So who are like the types of people that you'd surround yourself with on campus?
So like one of my main group of friends right now is the ones I met from the dorm last year, and we go out and like pretty much do everything. Like we'll drive out of Irvine to go like mini golfing or sometimes just like go to like a fair just to walk around or a mall to hang out. Think in the summer I took two of my friends to Hawaii because we figured it'll be something different. I never did like a friend trip before and it was really fun because like we got to drive around like the whole island and on like Hawaii and kind of like goof off like the whole trip.
It's good to see that you're practicing what you preach about like hanging out with like outgoing friends and everything. What about your campus involvements? Are you involved in any clubs on campus, or how
I'm
do you
in
get in touch with people who might not have had a great dorm like you did?
Oh well, every year at UCI, like on the first week of school, there's usually a club rush. So I definitely go with friends to that, and we'll all like talk about like what we're into. And then like for example, I found a Taekwondo club because I went to the club rush because I was just walking around and I'm like saying, this school has to have a Taekwondo club because I see karate, this, that. like if they don't have Taekwondo, like that would be hard to believe. And then eventually, when I didn't give up, finding because there was like 200 other clubs, I found like the tent for it, and I was just like, oh my god, these are my people. So I need to join this now.
And how has that experience been for you? I mean, you're super hardcore. You've been at this for 15 years. How is it like to be in like a circle of, I'm assuming, people who have also been through that long journey?
It's been great. Like I look forward to going to that class every day because it's like another group of friends I have, and we give ourselves competition too because I feel like they have the same mindset as me. So like sometimes we'll be like, all right, how many push-ups can we do, or how many pull-ups and stuff like that, just for fun, like after class.
Right.
Because our studio is like in a boxing kind of studio, and then there's like pull-up bars and a bunch of random stuff.
And you just like hang around it as it feels like your little playground.
Yeah, basically.
That sounds fun. So, with everything that you do from like your taekwondo, your weightlifting, all your other various hobbies that you're taking up, like how do you manage your time with school? I mean, I'm sure university takes up a lot of your time. How are you able to balance everything?
I just make sure I get all my work done in the day, and then at night I'm able to like hang out with friends and go to my club because like for example, my taekwondo club is at night, so I know like if I want to not miss out on that, I got to get my work done during the day.
I had some people tell me on this podcast that like they would wake up super early in the morning to like make sure to beat everyone to all the different like public facilities and everything. But are you one to do that as well? Do you wake up early? Do you go to like libraries to do all your work, or do you
I'll go
just
to
stay at home?
libraries sometimes if I happen to be on campus and I don't feel like going back to my like apartment to get just because like it's a hassle to like take all my stuff out again and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll occasionally like go to libraries and stuff to do some homework. And then once I'm like done with it, I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna go back to my apartment. Or sometimes I'll stick on campus to meet up with friends, and then we all go back together.
So how long does it usually take to like finish up all your work?
I say for me, maybe like 3 to 4 hours every day
3 to 4 hours. Oh
to
wow.
like finish my work.
And you just do that all in one sitting? Do you usually take breaks or?
I would usually do like 30 to 45 minutes, and then when I get stuck on something, I just kind of like take a break and like go on my phone a little bit. And then when my mind is cleared, I'll go back and complete it and all that stuff, or start another homework assignment.
That's great. So, where do you kind of see like where you're going in the future with this like type of degree?
Well, I'm hoping I could go somewhat like business related because obviously businesses are gonna need people that are willing to sort of like travel and help expand businesses and all that stuff. And I'm hoping this major kind of helps me find a job where like my for example like your boss will be like, oh yeah, there's a meeting conference in Boston. I need you to stop by there and do this real quick.
Right.
Like stuff like that. Or I need you to fly over to Taiwan and talk to this person and have dinner with them or something like that.
So, this is a your major is about like understanding the history of international countries, or could you remind me like how this applies to like what you're trying to do?
Well, and also, well, it teaches you about like the conflicts and everything, like what's going around the world, but it also teaches you about like the economy on like why certain places have this type of conflict based on their economy. Because like obviously like not everywhere is like the US and as fortunate, so of course like everywhere is going to have different standards of living.
What's like one of the things that you've discovered about countries that maybe not a lot of people know about that you find fascinating?
I say like the it's like the personality and people. Like you go to like other countries, like everyone, like especially Asia, like everyone is like super friendly, and it's when you talk to them for the first time, it's almost like you knew them for like your whole life. And then there are some places where it's just really unpleasant to visit because they like look down on you and be like, "Oh, what are you doing here? You don't belong here."
Right. So what would be like the historical context of those? Why that is?
I say it's just back to like what you learn in like your like basic history class, like slavery and like all that kind of stuff. And it's usually like those type of people that are like ignorant and they think they're better than everybody. So they surround themselves with other people like them, and then that's what like creates conflicts like this because they try to dream big but then also get into like people's personal space and get kind of greedy too.
Right. I could definitely see that. So it's like yeah, the outlook towards other people, right?
Yeah.
With that being said, let's move on into our closing tradition. We have a closing tradition on this podcast, so the last guest asks the next guest a question without knowing who it is. And the question that's been left for you is whatever it is that you do, why do you do it on a broader scale? Like, what is the ultimate goal and what does it mean to you and other people?
So I would say for me, like I'm into Taekwondo and working out and anything physical related because it's just what like gets me going, and I feel like that's how I made most of my friends. And um I don't know, it kind of feels good too, like when you're just lifting and then some guy, like person comes up to you and be like, "Oh wow, you're like doing that. That's pretty impressive," and all that stuff. And then after that, that spark of like conversation kind of gets you like kind of hyped up, and then you'll talk to them and be like, "Oh yeah, like oh what are you doing today?" and all that stuff. And then eventually you guys just start talking, and then you hang out, and then you become friends.
So it's a way for you to connect with other people, and it's also a way for other people to connect with you.
Yeah.
So what is like the ultimate goal of all this? I mean, what is the underlying purpose, or is there not much aside from enjoyment?
I say part of this is enjoyment. Another part is to be like healthy, and it's also to like make yourself like more presentable in life because it teaches you that you can't lose motivation even like when times are down. And
Do you find focus to be something important?
yes.
Like it doesn't seem like you're doing too many things at once. You've stuck with one thing for a super long time. Would you say you attribute that to your success a lot?
Yes, I believe like if you focus on a couple things rather than many things, you'll see more outcomes that way because you're more consistent with it and you don't have like your mind like everywhere. I mean, it's good to be part of multiple things, but I feel like if it just becomes overwhelming, then it starts getting involved like with the other stuff that you would normally do that you're good at. Like for example, if I was because I already know I like Taekwondo, working out. If I started adding in like art, cooking, like all that kind of stuff, I know it would affect like my workout and Taekwondo stuff because there's just gonna be days where they'll be like, "Oh, you have this art class from like 6 to 7." I'm just like, "Oh, I have Taekwondo right after that," but
It
if
disrupts the flow,
I don't
right?
want to, like kind of disrupts the flow.
Right. I love that.
And especially like if you're new to it and like you're like really bad at it, you're just gonna keep hating it and all.
So when it comes to things that you get into, you're someone that likes knowing what you're doing rather than like going through the stress of figuring it out.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Like the transition you made from like taekwondo to weightlifting. It was a familiar
Hmm.
feeling to you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, moving on or continuing with our tradition, what would be a question you want to ask our next guest without knowing who it is?
I just want to ask, like, if you had like one goal in life, what is that goal that you're trying to achieve? And What makes yourself different from others that will make you stand out?
I love that question. How would you answer that question yourself?
For me, I would say that like I'm short, and obviously like with the weight and all the stuff I can lift, like that's pretty rare because not too many people my size could do what I could do.
So you're trying to be the strongest pound for pound unit,
Yeah, I guess
or
so. That's that's the ultimate goal, but I don't know if it'll ever happen because I know there's always somebody better out there.
Well, thank you so much, Evan, for hopping on today's podcast. I love today's conversation. I hope people really understand the lesson that you gave about just pushing through that hard time, that moment when you plateau, because the alternatives to essentially fail, right? So just keep pushing, and you'll eventually look like you're like Evan or here. So yeah, thank you so much, Evan.
All right, thanks for having me on the Magnus Effect.
So,